सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Welcome to the second in the series of this month's talks. Inner peace through through understanding freedom from alienation. That is the topic for today. And the word Shanti is the singular most important word in Vedanta Shastra. In fact, that is why all our mantras end in what? Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We see that, and it is loosely translated as Om, peace, peace, peace. This is what we translate, especially in interfaith meetings and all. That's not wrong. It's a correct translation. But Shanti means much more than peace. It's a sense of well-being and an inner well-being. In fact, it is read properly, it is a synonym for moksha, liberation from all afflictions. That is what Shanti is. From the root verb sham, inner resolution. This is very, very important to understand, important to know, and it's something to look into, because this is something which is beneficial for all of us that are studying this and studying ourselves. Really, Vedanta Shastra is the study of the self and understanding the truth of the self, just exactly how this the primary text, the Upanishads and all, reveal this to us. This is basically what we are trying to do here. So now there are, when we look at the Shanti mantra, we have, we say Shanti 3 times. Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. And here we are praying for freedom from disturbance from 3 different sources. Because the disturbance can be from many sources, but they are categorized loosely into 3. And what are they? Adhidaivika. Adhidaivika means things that are centered on forces beyond our control, acts of God, so to speak. Adhidaivikam. Devanam adhikritya tishtati. So suddenly there is an earthquake, tsunami. These are the kinds of things that can rob one of one's well-being and peace of mind, because one has no control over the weather, over so many things that happen, over COVID, for example, over all these surges, where it's going to surge, what kind of measures one has to take, and the response or the lack thereof from political places, all these things. This is Adhidaivika on one level. Then we have another source, possible source of Ashanti or disturbance, which is what Adhibhautikam. Adhibhautikam means basically the what is that called? Bhutanam adhikritya tishtati, things that are centered on the elements and the elementals, which are there, such as one's immediate surroundings. You log into the Zoom meeting thinking that, oh, I am part of the next generation, so I'm going to look at this, and then you see somebody 75 years old, even though this is supposed to be 45, whatever, under 45, some cutoff, this thing is there. And then what? Till then you were enjoying the talk. But then you see the 75-year-old and you question what are they doing there? And then your own Shanti is robbed. Instead of enjoying the talk, you're wondering why they are there. And you see, so this is something, based on the on one's surroundings. This is centered on one's surroundings. Disturbance, you know centered on one's surrounding, adhibhautika. And then finally there is adhyatmika, shanti, disturbance, or adhyatmika ashanti, rather, disturbance that is possibly centered on oneself. Everything is going well, you know, the ceiling is not falling down, there are no tsunamis or earthquakes or fires or whatever it is, nothing is out of control, and and the surroundings are also okay, but somehow there is some disturbance within. One is distracted, one is unable to focus, and there are reasons for that. And that is what is called adhyatmika ashanti. And so we pray for freedom from all these. And this is very important, because in order to achieve anything, in order to gain anything, these three shantis, one's peace of mind depends on these three things being in line. Then we start to look at these three concepts, these three kinds of shantis that were discussed just now, a little closely. And what do you find? You find something very interesting. Adhidaivika, centered on acts of God, you have no control. What can you do? You cannot. You can at best you can pray. You have no control. What's going to happen when? You have no control over COVID. You have no control over how it's going to spread and who's going to get it. We don't know. Who's not going to get it? That also we don't know. Who's going to get really sick? Who's going to not? We don't know. We have no control. Neither do we have any control over, over our immediate surroundings. When we look deeply at Adhi Bhautika Ashanti, again it seems to be an extension of Adhi Daivika Ashanti, because again, how can you have a say over somebody else's behavior? If you're sitting in a meeting and somebody acts like a jerk, whether it's a Zoom meeting or whether it's a meeting in person, actually we have forgotten what in-person big meetings look like. We have no idea anymore. But so we are getting used to a new normal of seeing everybody, in the postage stamp, size of little faces peering through the screen. That is what we are used to now. And so this is the reality. So if somebody is behaving like a nerd or a jerk, or behaving badly, you have no control actually over somebody else's behavior. What control do we have? So that is, we cross out having any say over Adi Daivika Ashanti. We have no say over acts of God. We have no say over our surroundings, the behavior of others, because just like you have free will, they also have free will. And this is just the sentient people. What to talk of insentient, so many things that are there in the universe. So all that has an effect. So we have no control over that. Then finally we come to Adhyatmika Ashanti, which is what? The concept of the disturbances centered, possible disturbances centered on the I, centered on the self. And on the first look, it appears as though we have no control over that either. Arjuna says so much in the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter to Lord Krishna. You say I should have a say over my mind. You are asking me to sit and meditate. Meditation. How is it possible to, do this? How is it possible to have a say over the mind? Oh Lord Krishna, Krishna, if you ask me to get some air, catch some wind, and bring it to you, that is an easier task than catching the mind, which is more chanchala. Chanchala means restless than even the wind. you know. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramadhi balavat dhridam. He describes the mind, in a very interesting way. Chanchalam, he says, it is restless, it moves faster than you know, faster than the wind. Pramadhi means, it is stubborn, it doesn't listen to me. The only thing I can say about the mind, Arjuna would have said had he been a modern person, is never mind. Had he known the expression never mind, Arjuna would have used that for the mind. That's the only thing you can say for certain about the mind. Never mind. The stupid mind is so stubborn. It doesn't listen to me. It has a mind of its own. That's why it's called mind. you know. And then what? Pramadhi means stubborn. Balavat, it is forceful. It puts its will over me. It doesn't have, there is a indweller. I sense this presence of this indweller sometimes. In fact, when I'm talking to you, that is the one that is talking, that the one who is the witness is able to witness the fact that the mind is experienced as being both stubborn and forceful. This is the nature of the mind. Forceful, stubborn, stupid, and has a mind of its own. This is the mind. And pramadhi balavat and dhridam. Dhridam means it doesn't move except in its own way. It doesn't move except in its own way. And then he concludes, Tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. Sudushkaram means very difficult. Dushkara, sudushkara, extremely difficult. What? Nigraham, to have a say over the ways of this mind, is what, dushkara. Dushkara means not able to do this. Vayoho iva. Vayoho iva means what? Like even the wind. If you ask me to catch some air and give it to you, that seems easier right now than this catching hold of the mind. In other words, the precursor to gaining adhyatmika shanti, to gaining this, freedom from disturbance. This internal disturbance on the face of it seems to be more out of control than the external disturbance. But from the standpoint of Vedanta Shastra, even though this threefold distinction is made, it is made for our, it's made for us from the standpoint of the one who is potentially disturbed. The three is really one. Because, can you control what happens, on the large macro scale? No. Can you control your surroundings? No. Can you have a say over yourself, over your ways of mind? And of course, you want to say a capital no, underscored, bold, you want to write that. But actually, when you have a deeper look into that concept of Adhyatma Shanti, on the concept of this peace that is centered on the I, you see that is the only thing that is possible to change. How can you experience that? How can you know that? You know that simply because, you just, when you fall asleep, don't do that right now, not nice, but when you fall asleep, when you are sleeping, then what happens? There is no disturbance. No disturbance from yourself, no disturbance from any place. And there is also a presence of well-being. Sleep is a manifestation of Shanti. Unfortunately, one is not there to, experience it in real time. It is only there later on. You can say, Sukhamaham aswapsam na kinchidavedisham. I slept so well, I don't know anything. It was just so wonderful. That's why to rise from sleep is very difficult. That's why one wants to go to sleep without any problems. And this shows a very important thing here. It shows that this, inner peace, that is what is called inner peace. Inner peace, outer peace is not possible. That's why the talk series has been talked about it as inner peace. Outer peace is not possible, as we have seen. It is just you cannot control anything at all. Nothing can be controlled. Nothing, the more we try to control something outside, the more frustrated it is. So you see, there is a kind of a ricocheting between the external circumstances and the internal peace that one can command. This is the second thing that I want to focus on this talk, that there is some kind of a, what should I say, ping ponging between the two. The outside situation is not to my liking, and therefore what? I react, I have a reaction, I have I have sadness, there is fear, there is rejection, there is, again, pramati, there is a stubbornness, an unwillingness to accept what is. This is very, very, very important thing. An unwillingness to accept what is. What is means adhidaivika, that is what is. Adhibhautika is what is. And an inability to accept what is causes a lot of tumult, an inner tumult. And this inner tumult is what is at the, at the crux of this sense of alienation. Alienation again is not real. Okay? Alienation is not real. Because if we accept that alienation is real, then there is no Advaita, no non-duality possible. We have to pack up our bags, and swamis like myself will be out of a job because we peddle in non-duality. This is, this is our, this is what we wake and sleep. This is our waking, sleeping mantra. Advaita, 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 oneness, oneness, oneness. And if alienation is a fact, if the jiva, this, jiva means crying individual, okay? Yeah, so this complaining, crying individual, in other words, full of peeves, may as well call this entity piva, not jiva, piva. So this piva, full of grievances, if this jiva was separated from the jagat, the universe, and separated from the source of the jagat, the one who made what is just like it is, Ishvara, God, Bhagavan, the source, the cause of the universe. If this was the reality, then reality means what? Nanivrittihi, the reality means it cannot be negated. Abadhitam sat. If this was sat, if this was the reality, then that means it is abadhitam, non-negatable. If that is the case, we have to pack up the Upanishads, we have to pack up the Bhagavad Gita, and we have to pack up all the swamis. And then, poor swamis, what will we do, Yeah, this is what it is. And then poor, all the jivas too, no redemption possible. Anirmoksha prasangaha, a situation where moksha is not at all possible. Because the separation between jiva, jagat and Ishvara is here to stay a threefold separation. So Adhyatmika Ashanti centered on Ishvara, Adhibhautika Ashanti centered on the Jagat, and Adhidaivika Ashanti centered on Ishvara, Adhibhautika Ashanti centered on the Jagat, and then what? Adhyatmika Ashanti centered on the self. All these disturbances are here to stay, and there is no solution possible, no resolution possible. So this separation between the Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara, which is basically what? Fueled by Ashanti. Ashanti is the petrol. Yeah, that is what is fueling this separation. So the separation is a sneaky thing. The separation is an as though separation. This we have to understand. And as though separation, because if the separation is real, then there is no solution. Then why not we say the separation is unreal? Then if the separation is unreal, then there is nothing to remove. Then we say there is no separation, there is nothing to remove. Then again we have to pack up our bags. you know because sorrow is unreal, separation is unreal, alienation is unreal, fear is unreal. If it is unreal, there is nothing to remove. Then also you pack up your bags and go. We are in the territory of dissociation. It is unreal, it doesn't exist. So that which is non existent you cannot remove. A non existent alienation cannot be removed. An existent alienation also cannot be removed because it is a fact. Non existent cannot be removed. We'll all be having the Lady Macbeth syndrome. What is the Lady Macbeth syndrome? You know, she was a character in the Shakespeare's play, and she engineered the death of her brother in law, who was the king, so that her husband could become the king. But she was ridden with guilt after having done that. She went mad. She roamed the corridors of the palace at night, trying to wash off the blood from her hands. Out, out, she kept on saying, out, out, damn spot, she kept on saying. And then nobody could see any spots except her. She went mad. So trying to remove something non-existent is a futile thing because it is non-existent. And then if it is existent, it cannot be removed. If it is non-existent, it cannot be removed, it being a sense of separation that is causing disturbance here of various kinds of 3 categories of disturbance. So what is the solution here? So therefore we overuse a word in Vedanta, as though. We should always, the Vedanta teacher should permanently have their hands in apostrophes like this. Everything is as though separation, as though disturbance. We talk in apostrophes. This is the only solution. Why? Because it is experienced, it cannot be denied. And because it is not the ultimate reality, including one's own experience of oneself and one's own universal yearning for that wellness and well-being, it cannot be affirmed. That which can be neither denied nor affirmed, this in between existence and non-existence, in between reality and non-reality, hangs the jiva. This is what it is. An unhinged jiva is hanging between this. The jiva's experience of alienation is in between these 2 things. And that is why we need the Upanishad. That is why, the Swamis employ themselves. What is that? The self-employed Swamis, appoint themselves to be the mouthpiece of the Upanishad, because the Upanishad is in the form of something that is revealed, something that has to be broadcast, something that touches the heart despite all the Ashanti, the army of Ashanti that is there trying to ward off this message. That is the power of the teaching. That is the beauty of the teaching, and that is what has to be looked at. That is what has to be, understood. So, what is this alienation? If we look deeply into the alienation, and this is something which, this is very pertinent in the time of COVID, where one is experiencing not just a sense of alienation, but a physical isolation because of the various, you just really cannot be with people. We really cannot be with people for extended periods of time. Thanksgiving is going to look very different, Halloween we are experiencing every day, very spooky, And the holidays are going to be very different with all this quarantining and this and that, and the travel is always fraught with, so many problems. And in the beginning they said, oh, it's impossible to catch COVID on a plane. You can't do that because you have that little vent and there are HEPA filters, you know. And then you just keep that open, and then you sit right underneath it, and then you'll be fine. But then they started to have these travel bubbles, some agreements between countries, US and Hong Kong, for example. And even though they were testing the people at that end and this end, some tests are false positives, you know. Adi Daivika, you don't know, you don't know how to do this. Adi Daivika, not in your hands. False positives, and some passengers traveled and they found out that even in business class, where everything is so separated, it was possible the people sitting around right in front of the infected person, right behind the infected person, to the next aisle of the infected person, caught this, virus. So this is something again, the travel is very difficult. Seeing one's loved ones is very, very difficult. Other than everything is virtual. There is a sense of this physical isolation is again has left us with no other option except to resolve adhyatmika ashanti, the ashanti centered on the self. There is no other option. And then, on the same note, the CDC has revised its guidelines just recently to just yesterday to say that, what constitutes exposure. Before they had said, if you spend 15 minutes continuously with a person, then you are considered a close contact within, if you spend 15 minutes without mask and exposed and indoor setting, all these things. Now they are saying it doesn't have to be continuous. It can be 15 minutes over a 24-hour period. Yeah. So if you say hello for 5 minutes, go away, and then come back 6 hours later and say how are you doing, and whatever it is, that also constitutes within that 15 minute. Tick 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 tick. Yeah. Kala Bhairava, Lord Shiva in the form of time. Kali, today is Vijayadashmi. So, however, the goddess in the form of time, she has the last laugh, he has the last laugh. So, therefore, this is something, it is incumbent right now. Right now, there is an urgency to resolve this adhyatmika ashanti. So we don't even need to look into what this alienation feels like, because everybody is feeling it on an everyday basis. You can't do what you want, and what you don't want, you have no option but to do. You have to wash your hands till they fall off. Yeah, that's what you have to keep doing. And this is basically what the whole thing is. And so this sense of alienation is that which is aropita, superimposed upon the I, that is unfolded by the Upanishad, that whose nature is Shanti. That's why the Bhagavad Gita keeps saying, Sashantim apnoti. That person alone gains Shanti who knows this knowledge, who has an idea of this knowledge, who has this, understanding. That person alone can do this. And so therefore, this the first thing to understand is that the alienation is experienced, so it has a certain reality. But that reality, is again reality. Everything that is experienced doesn't have to be the truth. Sunset is experienced. I never give the example of sunrise, especially when talking to the next generation, because nobody knows what that is. Yeah, sunset, we are in safe territory. So sunset is experienced. You know, you can look, you can climb up a mountain, a hill, and then watch it. You can be, you can see, you can be near the ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and then see the sun setting. It's just so beautiful. Mother Maya paints the sky with various hues of purple and orange. That is the goddess's palette. She does that. And the sun goes in the water if you're watching it, from the ocean. And the sun goes behind a mountain top if you're watching it somewhere else. And it's such a beautiful sight. It gladdens the heart. But just because it is experienced, that is not the reality. Because any kind of a fourth grade geography lesson shows that the sun is neither setting nor rising. It is an apparent reality of the earth's movement. But what about the palette of the goddess? Ah, that is just another word for that is smog. Yeah, see, we are now down to this reality. It is smog. The more the smog, the more the colors, and because of certain particles suspended in the air, etc., etc. Even though no, we know this, we can still enjoy the sun, the so-called sunset. We can enjoy that. So this way, this is what we have to understand. The alienation, although experienced, the alienation is opposite of the sunset experience because it is not pleasant. The alienation that is experienced is not, it doesn't have to be the truth of the eye. Just like the sunset is not the truth, is not the truth of physics, of geography, of science. This is something we have to see. See that. So the alienation is what? Huge. Alienation from one's, surroundings, alienation from Ishvara, alienation from each and every other jiva. 5 minutes you spend, 15 minutes needed for COVID exposure. 5 minutes are enough for all the raga dveshas to arise and reject the other person, to misunderstand the other person, And the raga dvesha are like the army of the Kauravas in the Bhagavad Gita. They are huge, they mount a resistance, they are offensive, they are defensive, and they just, stop the genuine nature of the self, even on the experiential level, to want to connect to another, to want to be one with others, to live in harmony without hurting oneself or hurting others. This is what happens. So this is the alienation from the experience of alienation from other jivas. And how many jivas are there? Billions of jivas. 8 billions, what is the world population. And and they are all, we have categorized them conveniently into various, people, various categories. These are men, these are women, these are somewhere in between, and then we have opinions about all of them, and these are, these are the people who are living in this country, these are the people who are of a certain color of their skin, these are the people belonging to certain ethnicities, these are the people belonging to certain political parties, and we have opinions about all of them. Opinions is a polite way of saying raga and dvesha, which is the bread and butter of overcoming alienation. Raga, strong preferences; dvesha, strong prejudices. This is what the whole thing is. So these preferences and prejudices, from where did they come? You know, they were already there, says Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvesham buddhau ragadveshau vyavasthitau. It has been arranged. It is adhidaivika. Thank God I don't have to blame myself for my raga and dveshas. I came with them. I carried some from last life. And then, as long as I am born in self ignorance, the raga dveshas proliferate, they prevail, they have an abiding presence. In fact, they stand in for the self. Because when you go on a dating site, what do you put? You put all your raga dveshas on the computer profile. I like this, I like hiking, I like movies, I like cooking, but only vegetarian, and I do this, I don't do this, I like this. And the other person also puts their preferences, so a bunch of raga dveshas date one another. This is what it is. And I have heard from talking to a number of next gen people, it's very hard to find like minded people. Where to find like minded people? That's what happens. When you study Vedanta, you know so much. You're not going to settle for just, another, marrying another bundle of raga dveshas. You want more, you know better. Good for you. That's wonderful. I'm very proud of you for that. You have seen this. You are not no longer subject to this spoof. This is wonderful. And so so these raga dveshas, they are there, and and all these so-called dating sites are just, you're just dating a bunch. Your raga dveshas are dating a bunch of raga dveshas. And then you see, when you look deeply into raga dveshas, one thing you can say about them is that they are not steady. They keep changing. They keep changing faster than you can change clothes, because that is how they are. Just look at yourself. I mean, whatever you enjoyed 5 years ago, you don't enjoy that anymore. So if a bunch of raga dveshas wants to be one with another bunch of raga dveshas, whether it's in the form of a friendship, whether it's in the form of a significant relationship, it is fraught with difficulty. Any kind of a partnership where a bunch of raga dveshas, seek another solace in another bunch of raga dveshas, can only result in misery. And as we know, misery loves company. That's the only kind of thing you can have. Why? Because they keep changing and they have skirmishes with one another. Contrast this to the the ancient Indian way of whatever marriage. We relied not on adhyatmika, on adhidaivika we relied on the horoscope. I always call it horoscope. We relied on the horoscope. Yes, we also dated, the horoscopes. The horoscopes would date and spend some time in the astrologer's house. Horoscope is nothing but manifestation of Adhidaivika Bhagavan in the form of the blueprint of what this particular jivas are about to, what these particular jivas, what is their potential, what are their limitations. We left it to Bhagavan. And then after the marriage was done, you never got married to a person. You got married to the whole village. And then there were all these egos to contend with. Leaving was not an option, because the divorce and all is just a legal, it's all new. Leaving was not an option. And so, you had to, unless of course there was some terrible abuse or whatever, within that. And then there were some mechanisms. But other than that, if it was just some difficulty of ragadveshas, then each person, whether it was a man or a woman, anybody had to adjust you know uh, to so many egos within the family, within the extended families. It was based on sacrifice. It was based on the dharma of sacrifice. Of what? Not your, not anything except the raga dveshas. The raga dveshas are what are being sacrificed. So it was a win win situation, because the sacrifice of the raga dveshas leads to self growth. And self growth is, contingent, is very important ingredient for shanti, for moksha, for relative shanti, that is freedom from disturbance, and for ultimate shanti, absolute shanti, which is another synonym, as I told you, for moksha. So this is how we did it. So the marriage was an institution designed for moksha, you know yeah, and anybody married can tell you that. Yeah, definitely it brings you closer to moksha, because there are so many things out of your hands. What else to focus on? There's nothing else to focus on. So marriage for us was always, in the Hindu Shastra, a means to an end. It wasn't an end in itself. If marriage is an end in itself, it is sure to end. This is something we have to understand. Marriage is a means to an end. Everything is a means to an end. The whole Vaidika life is something that is singularly focused on self growth. Self growth first and foremost means reducing the sway of the raga dveshas over one's mind, over one's ways of being. And for that cannot happen without letting them go, without deferring them. We talked about this last time. Deferred gratification, and this is again something the coronavirus is teaching. Before, it was very easy to have instant gratification. You want cake, you go get it. You can have the cake, you can eat it too, you can do whatever you want. Now you want cake, then you better start, look at, browse some recipes, because you're not going to get it ready made. You have to make it yourself. Or you have to, even if you go to a shop to get the cake, you have to first bring your sanitizer. You have to see what all is there. you know you have to quarantine the carton in which the cake comes, so that all the virus goes away without human contact. All this, it's too much. So we are learning the art of deferred gratification. It's a gift from Bhagavan. So the corona is a manifestation of an avatara of the Lord, because the Lord said, I will come. Sambhavami yuge yuge, in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam. Dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Very famous verses from the Bhagavad Gita. In order to re-establish dharma, in order to help the people who are working hard to reduce their raga dveshas. Those are the sadhus. Who live for others. Those are sadhus. Parakaryan sadhnoti iti sadhuhu. Who live with a sense of service, who don't want to just, earn their own bread and butter and be happy with that, because that's not what makes them happy. They live, in the words of Pujya Swamiji, to become contributors to the society, not just consumers. This is what, those are the sadhus, and to protect them, to help them to shed the raga dveshas. Further, I keep incarnating myself. And then, and we have some kind of spiritual romanticism. We think Bhagavan will come all luster and light, and with Shankha, Chakra, all these accoutrements, and, and whatever, crown, and wearing yellow, or we have some other Ishta Devata forms, flute and all these things, or Rama with the bow, or the goddess smiling, don't fear, I'm here. All these, we have our, Ishta version. Ishta again is based on Raga Dveshas, my friends. Let us not forget. you know. But here, the Lord has decided to incarnate himself in a ubiquitous, meaning all pervasive way. Invisible, whose effects are still, whose himself invisible, the karya, the effects are very visible in our lives. This is what it is. And so, confronted with this avatara, there is nothing else to do except say Namaha. Om Namaha. Namaha is a beautiful word. Namaha te astu. It is a sound, and it is also it is also a symbol. Namaste has a symbol. Namaha has a symbol, and it is a sound, that both of which have meanings. Shivam, since we started a little late, I'm going to go 10 minutes over, okay? And then we'll keep time for questions also. Yeah? Yeah. I really didn't give him a choice, but, you know, I would
That
like
sounds
to finish this. Is that okay? Yeah. Good.
that would be great.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So, you know, Namaha. This is a symbol. Let us look at the symbol first. Two hands. They don't look alike. Even the fingerprints do not match. And the dominant hand we here is little more developed. It's bigger than this hand. And the fingers are all not of the same size. And yet I bring them together. It is not putting, just like, it's when you put the hands together, it's a symbol of how we deal with differences, how we deal with the things we do not like, how we deal with the things we do not have a say over, how we deal with the things to which we are resistant, how we deal with things towards which we have apathy, towards which we have fear, towards which make us sad, which make us disturbed. This is the symbol where all the differences are brought together. They are not subsumed or swallowed, they are recognized and transcended. Here I can use the word transcendental. They are transcended because we don't stop at the corona, how it behaves, and it has all these, what is this called, various what are they called, the spikes and all these things. We don't stop at that. We take corona where it belongs. It belongs with the Lord. Nay, it is a manifestation of the Lord. And if it is causing disturbance on all various levels, and I have no say over it, I can only deal with the disturbance here in the level of my own reactions to it. And sometimes I cannot control my own reactions to it either. The anger is there, the fear is there, the resistance is there, the apathy is there, the reactions are there. Unto all of them, Namaha means, O Lord, O Goddess, this is beyond me. This is totally beyond me. I have no say over this. Help, because I have no say over this at all. Help me here. This is, it is Namaha is also, while being a symbol that is, while being a symbol that has a sense of surrender, supplication to a higher order over which I have no say. At the same time, the word Namaha, is immediately designed to give peace. You try it. Next time you're in a tough spot, even if you cannot do this sign because there are people around you, you just say Namaha. And if you're in a really tough spot, say it twice. Namo Namaha. This is what it is. Om Namo Namaha. And this is a practice. This is instant meditation. This really is. And I can say this because I do this. I do this whenever I'm confronted by a situation over which I have no say. Namaha, namo, namo, namaha, namo, namaha. This is what the whole thing is. And that is something which is so beautiful, because it is it is hinging on a particular truth. And that truth is very, very important to recognize. And that truth is something so beautiful when you recognize it, is that you cannot settle accounts. This is what Pujya Swamiji's famous, words. Settling accounts with the universe, settling accounts with Ishvara, settling accounts with the Jagat, with Jivas. He used to talk about settling accounts. Settling accounts simply means that we that there is some disturbance, and that has to be resolved. And if you look for trying to find resolution with each and every jiva, not possible. You may wish to settle accounts, they will say, I don't want to settle accounts with you, I have a peeve with you. What are you going to do? It's a one-sided settling account, then it leaves you feeling again a sense of separation, alienation. You cannot settle accounts with every single thing, every single nama, rupa, name and form in the Jagat. Not possible. How are you going to do that? Not possible. You can't settle accounts. And then you can't settle accounts with your own mind, because it is a raging tsunami of emotions. It is difficult. So there is only one place where this namaha is directed. It is to the Lord of the universe, the goddess of the universe. Wherever you are, however you are, please help me overcome this. Please help me overcome this. Please help me to have a say, over the ways of my mind. This is the only thing you can do. And which means that you have to turn yourself. You have to transform yourself into a devotee. You have to transform yourself into a devotee. That is the only option that is possible. No other option is possible. Devotee means what? I mean, there's sometimes, the one is angry at Ishvara. How can I be a devotee and sing your praises when I'm angry? The anger is part of the devotion. We make the mistake of leaving the anger out and trying to force some other emotion like Shraddha, like Bhakti, and like, all nice. Right now, it is difficult to make nice with Bhagavan. One is angry. What have you done to my life? I am supposed to be a young adult. I am supposed to be young and restless, and I am supposed to be doing all these things. And here you have confined me to this, you have changed my reality. What have you done to me? And I'm supposed to say, namaha to you, and, bhaje, I worship you, I love you. Forget it. Not possible. In the Hindu Shastra, the beauty of the Shastra is such that your anger is part of this resolution. Your frustration, your reaction, your inability to connect is part of the devotion. The Sri Rudram, which you have all heard at various points in your life, which is chanted in temples in the mornings for Abhisheka, that symbolizes this. That symbolizes the various contours of the relationship that one has with the Lord. One of fear, don't shoot. Don't shoot your arrows, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune at me. I always feel that Shakespeare must have studied Sri Rudram because when you read, he must have known some Vedanta. All the world's a stage, men and women are but actors. He said that. Amazing. Something, something was there. And in Hamlet's monologue, to be or not to be is the question whether to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, you know. And the same thing we hear in of course, the Rudram comes first. That's why he says, I say he must have borrowed from the knowledge of Sri Rudram. You know, Namaste astu dhanmane bahubhyam utate namaha. Namaha to your arms which seem horrid, and which namaha to your bows which seem to be directed at me. Oh no, I run away. Again it's directed at me. I hide, but then it is directed at me. My own karma phala. Yes, this is important to know that this is not a personal arrow, that some kind of a personal slight. It is my own karma. And if we are talking of corona, it is our own karma in the form of a collective karma. In the form of the collective. Yeah, that collective thing, this is, that collective thing is what is important here. Because everybody is going through this. And when everybody is going through this, then, what happens? Then it is not you personally. You are not targeted. You are not targeted at all. So that means what? That means that you are not at fault. Your anger is included in this relationship of devotion. This is what is called settling accounts. Then again in the Sri Rudram, Drape andhasaspate daridranila lohita. Drape means you disgusting fellow. In which other religion can you call Bhagavan a disgusting fellow and get away with it? Tell me. In most other traditions it is blasphemy. One will be excommunicated. Think about that. Here you can not only get away with it, but it becomes a very profound prayer. Ishwaraize your anger. This is wonderful. Ishwaraize your pain. Ishwaraize your sorrow. Ishwaraize your frustration. Ishwaraize your alienation. This is what the meaning of Namaha is. You stop seeing your mind as some personal burden given by Bhagavan. Where else can we blame it, You stop seeing your depression, your isolation, your alienation, your anxiety as some kind of a personal slight, a burden which you have to bear. Instead, you see it as the psychological order, the vast psychological order that there is. Given these circumstances, an order means what? It is infallible. Meaning, given these circumstances, no other situation is possible. Given this, background of the COVID, this reaction is particularly appropriate, is generally appropriate. That means what? I am within the scheme of things. Suddenly there is no isolation. The moment you see that the mind is within the general order of the psychological, every mind behaves like this. So then there is, there is no, there is nothing at all. There is, no possibility of alienation. This is something which is very, very important to understand. Very, very important to understand. And so therefore what? So therefore we can see that there is truth here. There is truth in in forging a new kind of a relationship with Ishvara. A new way of relating which includes your resistance, which includes one's pain, which includes one's sorrow. Tasmai Namaha. Tasmai means unto that. What is that? Whatever over which I have no say, including the ways of my mind. Tasmai Namaha. This is another mantra. Namo Namaha. And then another mantra that Pujya Swamiji would always say when he led meditations was Tasmai Namaha, Tasmai Namaha, Om Namaha, Om Namaha, Om Namaha. So this is where the oneness is on the level of the, on the level of the mind, on the level of the, on the level of the everyday, on the level of one's reactions, on the level of one's pains, one's sorrows, you know, and this is something which is something to celebrate. It is a oneness. It is a lived oneness. It is an experienced oneness. We can no longer say that Vedanta is an abstraction. This is Vedanta because this devotion is authentic. It includes your pain, it includes your frustration, it includes your sorrow, it includes everything. Whatever is there, it includes it, and that in that inclusion, there is a precursor of transcendence. The transcendence happens because there is, there is inclusion, and so one learns to first befriend the ragadveshas and to understand that if one is not having a uh, not having the ability to overcome it right now, that is within the order. And what is that order? The psychological order, of course. That is within the order, and that is okay, and that is definitely okay. And making that okay is the journey into this knowledge of oneness. And this kind of a newfound quote unquote devotion, which doesn't look like the technical devotion of, being imbued with love, etc., that will come later. The raga dveshas have to wash off. So, this kind of a devotion that is very appropriate to the contemporary times is actually very ancient. Is very ancient. It takes in the unconscious mind, it takes in our parallel reality, the pratibhasika, it takes in our resistance, it takes in our reactions, and it eulogizes them, it divinizes them, it ishvarizes them. And that is where the that is where we can disarm. No longer, to say, use Pujya Swamiji's words again in conclusion, no longer do we need to be a ninja, offensive and defensive. You can relax in the order, including the mental order, the psychological order, the emotional order. And in this newfound devotion is a lived oneness, is a lived sense of relative peace, you know, which is a shanti, which is a kind of a, a kind of a relative shanti. Then, fortified with this relative shanti, one studies Vedanta, and then one gets, gets acquainted with oneself as absolute shanti. No other shanti is, the shanti means there's absence of another thing. Every other thing is you, is an extension of you. And so that requires a committed exposure to Vedanta. But until then, nothing can stop one from enjoying relative, shanti. And this is how to get to the place of gaining that. So I will stop here and chant the closing prayer, and then after that we'll have some, we'll have some 15 minutes for questions. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Yeah, any questions, please?
Namaste,
You can
Swamiji.
type in the chat box, yeah, or you can talk. Yes, namaste.
So I'm just going to stop the YouTube live so that the young adults have more
Yeah,
freedom to
no, you
ask.
don't have to stop. They can just listen to the questions and answers. Yeah.
Okay,
They cannot
okay,
answer, they cannot ask the questions, so it's okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. We have one question from Nitya, so I'm going to unmute you, Nitya.
Hello, Nitya.
Hello, Swamini. Thank you for
How are you?
with us tonight. Thank you. I really loved it.
Wonderful. Tell me.
You mentioned having frustration and using that as a way to be a part of faith with Ishvara, right? Like frustration is a moment of faith just as much as bhakti or anything like that, right? Or
Yeah,
anger.
yeah, yeah.
Um, which I found incredibly profound. What about self alienation, anger at oneself, or frustration, or negativity, and those kinds of things? I think, at least for me, sometimes I feel almost guilty for feeling those things because I know that I should be celebrating myself for accepting and enjoying the fact that I am Atma, or trying to find the beauty in that. But it's sometimes very difficult to deal with frustration like that. So,
Yeah.
do you have any advice on how to, I guess your term, ishvarize it, I suppose?
Ishvarais, yes. You see, that's a wonderful question. And the same laws apply whether
Mm,
the Ashanti, sorry, is within or without. Same laws apply. So one has to befriend the pain and the sorrow. First, as something that is here. It may not be here to stay, but it is here right now. Right now it is here, you know. Right now it is unavoidable. Right now, oh Lord, I am under its spell. Right now, this is how it is. Right
mm,
now, this is where I am at. And here the right now is important. Here the right now is actually Vedanta, because the last time we saw the truth of now is timeless.
mm,
Ah, because if I ask you, are you sad now? You can never say yes. Even if you say yes, well, you know what I'll tell you? I'll say, that was then, that now has gone.
mm,
Right now, are you sad? Well, okay, this now has also gone by the time you thought. Now, free from sorrow, now free from anger, now free from fear, now free of frustration, now free of pain, now free of want. So when I say, you know, and when you start looking at this like this, that right now I'm frustrated, the now preponderates over the frustration. The now is the witness that is witnessing the frustration, which is confined to time. You, who is now, who is the witness, is unconfined.
mm,
And you are the adult. The frustration is a baby wanting a bottle. Yeah. You have to hug that baby. We started to talk about that last time also. You have to embrace that inner, you have to make all the raga dveshas into various crying infants. Imagine them not as an army of scary, people with bows and arrows or guns, but imagine them as a room full of crying infants.
mm,
Everybody's running their own daycare, and you cannot run away from that. And you cannot give your daycare to the significant other to manage because they have their own daycare.
mm.
You have to parent, apparently, your own ragadveshas in the form of your own, pains and sorrows, and you have to make friends with them. But if you start, feeling their pain, you have identified with it. You have to step back. If that makes sense. This is
Yes,
how
that does. Yeah.
Ishvara is your own ragadveshas. You have to, see them as harmless infants, very recalcitrant, crying all the time, stubborn, annoying babies that I never wanted to give birth to, and here I am with all of them. So you have to be a surrogate parent, yeah. Yeah, you have to be in the place of the witness and watch them with love. So that is the first part of the answer. The second part of this, the second part of my answer would say, fill up your life with some kind of self-affirmatory practices. Yoga is wonderful. It gives self-love. Suddenly, you find that you can make your body into a pretzel. Aha, what an accomplishment! And you can do pranayama, you can hold your breath without turning blue. This is another accomplishment. So you get to know yourself on the level of the body, on the level of the mind, on the level of the senses. Yoga fosters self love. It's a very, very effective way. And there are other ways of self love. There is some creativity. You can do whatever it is, whether if you write, if you paint, if you sing, if you dance, if you color, all these things. That creative outlet is very important. It is how you contribute and you nourish your own being. You need time for that. And sometimes you make time for creativity, nothing comes except a big block, and then you think of yourself as a blockhead, and then you blame yourself. No, sometimes the creativity means just watching the ceiling, yeah, or just watching the traffic go by. You need some time. You need some time to familiarize yourself with that one who is now, now, now. Yeah. Some people have raised their hands, Vama and Shakun and Ojas. I don't know who raised your hand first.
Thank you,
For the
Swami.
Rama and Shukan.
Okay, go for it.
Swaminiji, thank you for your talk. I really appreciated it. I had a question. I think I, uh, how do I phrase this? So, I guess up until now, in trying to uh, settle down my likes and dislikes, and I would end up, what you were saying, like dissociating myself and then becoming kind of apathetic. It seems that what you're saying now is that in order to achieve the inner peace, I would need to uh, uh, reach a level of acceptance for the likes and dislikes. So my question is, and I've seen this more and more now in like our political climate. I feel like a lot of times we have people who strongly we don't recognize, differentiate between what is likes and dislikes versus what is what we believe is right, or like maybe like the social dharma. So how would we differentiate between that? How do we recognize what is actually likes and dislikes?
Yeah, you know, that's a very good question, also. So, you see, the thing is that sometimes the likes and dislikes are not just individual, they are also collective. There are collective ragadveshas that are, sometimes pass within the whole thing of rubric of social dharma. And sometimes, if this is something which we see in the in with the parents. And what happens with the parents, you see that, okay, they are saying, this is how we do things, this is how we do things in our, in our life, and this is how we do things in our family, this is how it is. And so that is what has to be distinguished. That there may be a level of choice, there may be a level of understanding. And I just shared with you a photo of Durga Puja in Bihar, where they have Ishvarized the whole situation with the coronavirus. So this I was wanting to do, so you can look at that. Very beautiful. So this, and the people who have done this probably have not studied Vedanta. They have not understood, all this. They have not studied Upanishads. This is village people in a place called Sindri in Bihar. So you can see how, the goddess, the demon here is the coronavirus, who is Ishvarized, and who is not being killed, because who's being vaccinated against. You can see that there is a vaccination there going on, and the goddess is not carrying, she has many arms, but she's carrying the vaccine and the stethoscope and wearing a white coat with the ambulance behind her. This is, this is how we Ishwarize. And the coronavirus can be anything. You can vaccinate yourself, you can inoculate yourself against various emotions, by making friends with them, against various pains, various sorrows. So this is how to do that. But you have to discern. You have to discern whether this is really social dharma, or whether it is something that is like a collective ragadvesha. And in the beginning, it is confusing. So you just confirm if it makes sense. But if it deeply doesn't make sense, you have every right to question it. You have every right to, look at it critically. That is in fact, Adi Shankara also says, even if 1,000 Upanishads come and say fire is cold, don't believe it. Use your common sense. Yeah. That common sense is viveka, the power of discernment. And like every muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. Ojas.
Hello, namaste.
Hello.
This is a
Hello,
wonderful
namaste.
talk. Sorry about the noise. So my question, you've been talking about collective ragdvesh and in this talk, and a lot of times we see adhyatma as a very personal um, journey, and not in the collective way. So my question is related to that in two different ways. One is uh, alienation. When I first thought about alienation, there's one way that we use it as our personal alienation from other people, from Jeev, from Jagat, from Ishwar. Um, but also another form of alienation, which is prominent in our societies today, is the one that Marx talks about, the alienation from one's work. When we don't feel happy with the work that we're doing
Yeah.
because of the situation we have, maybe now the work that I like doing I cannot do anymore, or the work that I hate doing, now I have to do it in that way.
Yeah.
um, and so we're alienated for our work, and so we don't enjoy our karma as much in some ways. So my question is, I'm a fan of always talking about enjoy the process. Whatever the process is, it has been given for our elimination of our rag dvesh.
Yeah.
Um, but how can we enjoy the work that we are doing without feeling separated from that? Without feeling like we're part of a big machine of capitalism, of whatever other things that are out of our control.
Yeah.
Um, how can we do that using the tools that we have?
Yeah. You see, the macro and the micro, to respond to you on the general level, they ricochet, they relate to one another, and they affect one another. So the micro, macro, all of them, we just have words for it, but from the standpoint of, the order, it's all one and the same. So you're right, it's all about adhyatma. And if you're alienated from the standpoint of Vedanta, whether you're alienated from a bunch of other people, or whether you're alienated from yourself, meaning the mind, etc., or whether you're alienated from your work, is all one and the same. It is alienation. It's a sense of alienation. And and that's why in the Hindu Dharma we say work is worship. Only in the Hindu Dharma we can say that. And we have as you said, you are process oriented. And you can't, we understand this one thing: we can't always do as we like. So we learn to like what we have to do. That's really, there's no other going, there's no other way around it. Either you leave what you're doing, and maybe there is a point to that. Maybe this is a kind of a new awakening that only you can decide. Either you leave something, maybe this is the impetus to find something else, even though it may be scary, even though it may be needing a leap of faith and some trust. Or if that's not possible right now, we have to befriend it. And again, namaha, you know, workaya namaha, tasmai namaha. And to this work, namaha. You have to fortify yourself. And then for the mind, which doesn't listen, you have to give it some treats. Every hour you give it some treats. And if all the treats are food treats, then you will really become achala, like the atma. You will not be able to move. So the treats have to be some other kind of other treats. Like, maybe I'll do something that I like after 1 hour of doing this. You shamelessly reward the mind, you reward the ahankara, because this is how the work atmosphere is like that. The people who work get rewarded, they get promotion, they get raises, and they get praises. So same thing you do here to that. And then and if you are a little more self reflexive, then one can go into what is it that it is difficult here, what is it that is painful here, why this particular raga dvesha has got such a hold over me. Look into the past. What does it remind you of? Make friends with that. Ishvarize that emotion. Ishvarize that experience. Ishvarize that pain. Ishvarize that self-loath that is coming in the way. And number 3, finally, I will also say that, as a general rule, we have to stop, it's also part of our language, because work is something detested, certain things are detested, and we have learned to go about our day using violent metaphors. We have to stop that. We go about a day using absolutely violent metaphors. I got up, and nobody says I got up, I threw off the covers. Why did you throw off the covers? No, I had to do that. I jumped into the shower. Why can't you just walk into the shower? No, I jumped into the shower. Then what did you do? I grabbed a bite to eat. No Hindu, I forbid it. No Hindu should grab a bite to eat. It is an inner yajna. It's an inner yajna. Brahmarpanam Brahma Havihi, we chant. I grabbed a bite to eat. Then what did you do? I ran out the door. you know and then what did you do after you ran out the door? I hit the road. There is even one old song, I hit the road, Jack, don't come back, no more, no more. I hit the road. These are all violent metaphors. It is to fill us with a sense of dread as we go about our day. We have to change our thinking, and for that we have to change our language. I hit the road. Then what did you do? I cranked out some emails at work. Then what happened? I became cranky. What else? And then what did you do? On the way to work, I hit the road. On the way back, I beat the traffic. You see, same thing. I beat the traffic. And then what? Nobody cooks. I threw something together. I nuked it, meaning I used the microwave. This is a bomb. Nuked it means it's a bomb. You're using a metaphor of a bomb to describe one's daily life. What a travesty. And then what? I crashed. What else, All these violent metaphors. That's why in the Hindu Dharma we have a way to wake up. Karagre vasate Lakshmihi, may the goddess of fortune, prosperity, live on the tips of my fingers. May she be backed by knowledge, and may Govinda, the one who is found in the Vedas, bless these hands, these organs of action. As the feet touch the ground, I say, may I not be a burden on Mother Earth today. I don't know what I did yesterday, but at least today, let me walk with grace. Let me not be a burden on you. And nobody jumps into the shower, Gange cha Yamune cha iva Godavari Saraswati. Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jale Asmin Shavar Jale Asmin Sannidhim Kuru. Enter this, all the holy rivers of the world, enter this shower. It is Abhisheka. What you see to the Lord in the temple is what you do to yourself for that indweller. You awaken the indweller who is free of ragadveshas at every practice. This is what is Hindu mindfulness, even though the word mindfulness has gone to the Buddhists. This comes from the Hindu tradition. We were not very mindful of this, that's all. We have to be mindful of this, that these practices are here with us. We are awakening the indweller, not the ragadveshas, from the early morning practice. Nobody should grab a bite to eat. You slow down, and this is an inner yajna for the fire, which is the agni, which is the digestive fire within. That's why you can't eat junk food. I don't know how you can say junk and food in the same breath. This is not a dustbin, you know. And then what? Nobody should hit the road, nobody should run out the door. The driving to the destination the driving is the destination. Everything is mindfully done. You go there, you participate, it is a form of worship. And it is said so in the and you don't beat the traffic, you don't become cranky, because it is all invoking Ishvara. And you cannot invoke Ishvara unless you invoke Ishvara within. That is why the Adhyatma occupies center stage. This is what the whole thing is. And we have to see this. We have to make that a practice every day. We have to change our language. No more crashing, no more running, no more beating, no more hitting, no more nuking anything. And when we stop doing that, our thinking also automatically changes, and we learn to live that oneness. And the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita talks about this. Swakarmana tam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manavah. Yataf pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manavah. I worship Bhagavan through my work. Through each and every aspect of my work is worship. So worship can take many forms. I can put flowers and say 1,000 names. I can also, everything I do is a flower at the feet of the Lord. I visualize that. That is again a newfound sense of devotion. So even if you cannot make peace with your work, make peace with the process of this. Ishvarize the work through these ways, by Ishvarizing your life. Yeah. Any other questions?
That is all, Sominiji.
Wonderful. This was a great meeting. Thanks to Shivam, and thanks to all of you for attending. I enjoyed myself, and have a wonderful evening or any time of the day from wherever you are logging on. Happy Vijayadashmi. May the grace of the goddess be with all of you in the form of prosperity, peace, inner peace, and finally self-knowledge. Thank you. Om
Thank you
Tat
so
Sat.
much, Sominiji. On behalf of all of the Arshavidya Next Generation, we wanted to thank you for addressing us from India, and such a beautiful series of talks that you've given us. A lot to work with in the next, upcoming weeks to contemplate on. And just thank you so much for spending the time with us. And I wanted to thank everyone who's attended both on Zoom and on YouTube Live. Our next session is on November 8th, 11/8. That'll be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And one small announcement is that we are updating our email listserv. So if you're not on our listserv, we are updating the listserv. So even if you're on there, please make sure that you updated your contact information. You should have gotten that in an email. If you have not gotten that email, please email us